I would say next year, I would say better than this year.
Next year will be better than this year. And that's what NASSCOM survey of IT CEOs seems to be suggesting at this point in time, that 2024 is likely to be better than 2023. But the mood in 2023 was also cautiously optimistic, and eventually we actually saw a significant decline in revenue as well as performance as far as the tech sector is concerned. So when we talk about 2024 being better, what are we talking about?
Like generative AI, most places we are doing initial experimentation POCs to say that it's become mainstream, and that is causing the reduction in workforce is not accurate. If you look at AI as only improving productivity and reducing the compute hours required, that's only one aspect.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What an absolute pleasure it is to be back here at NASSCOM. I've been a NASSCOM regular. I missed it 2 years in a row, so I'm really glad that I have the opportunity to be back here and in conversation with Krithi. Krithi, thanks very much for joining us here.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone.
Good evening to everyone. So, you know, before we came out, Krithi and I were talking about the fact that since everyone's talking about AI, maybe we should convert it into a drinking game. And I think we'd have a drunk audience here at the end of that if we do convert it into a drinking game. Just the hype around AI. We'll get to AI in just a bit. But let's talk about what's happening as far as the outlook is concerned, Krithi. We last spoke barely a month ago. You were cautiously optimistic about the outlook. As things currently stand, you now have Japan going into a recession. You have the UK going into a recession. India is still looking good.
That's right.
Inflation in the US is still a challenge, and the print is coming higher than estimates and expectations. What does the world look like from your vantage point today?
So, Shereen, again, first of all, thanks for being here. We are continuing to be quite cautiously optimistic, more in the medium to long term. As we discussed before also, there is so much of technology debt, there is so much of technology modernization that needs to happen. Everyone wants to leverage generative AI, so there is so much of work that needs to get done. So we believe there is a lot of opportunity, but there could be medium term to short term disruptions because of the overall outlook in economics. So we remain optimistic, at least cautiously optimistic in the medium to long term.
Cautiously optimistic in the short to medium?
Medium to long term.
In the medium to long term. What about the short term? Are you cautious or optimistic in the short term?
See, first of all, it's too difficult to call, right? I don't want to talk about the current quarter. Next quarter could be more, I would say next year, I would say better than this year.
Next year will be better than this year. And that's what NASSCOM survey of IT CEOs seems to be suggesting at this point in time, that 2024 is likely to be better than 2023. But the mood in 2023 was also cautiously optimistic, and eventually we actually saw a significant decline in revenue as well as performance as far as the tech sector is concerned. So when we talk about 2024 being better, what are we talking about?
See, the reason being that some of the industry verticals which are large for us, we believe have bottomed out, and we start seeing yearly green shoots as we explained last time. So that's the reason, that's what gives us optimism that the coming year could be better than this year.
Okay, so the coming year is likely to be better than 2023. Krithi, I want to understand from you, and you know, this is what everyone in the US is talking about, the kind of concentration that we've seen of the Magnificent Seven. And for those of you who are probably, I would imagine everyone in this room is well versed with what's happening as far as the US stock markets are concerned, and the concentration of market capitalization as far as those 7 big tech stocks are concerned. I was just looking at the numbers. The Magnificent Seven in the US, the revenue is 10% of the S&P 500's revenues. If we look at what I'm calling the Super Six, the 6 nifty stocks here, IT stocks in India, the IT large caps revenue is about 4.5% of the BSE 500 revenue. You know, as you look at what's happening in the US with the Tech 7, with the Magnificent Seven, what should that mean for us back here in India?
As I said, like, we've been quite optimistic on technology on long term. Okay, and what technology can do, the kind of value that technology can add is phenomenal. I think we have seen, one of our CTO used to say, like the famous Moore's law, okay, that's becoming applicable for the knowledge work today. The amount of value that we will be able to add with the same amount of workforce could double every 18 months. So like if you factor that in, that's a kind of outlook we all need to have, and that's a kind of, I don't want to put a number whether it will be 10% or whatever, but definitely long-term outlook is very positive.
The long-term outlook is positive, but why are you hesitating to put down a number, Krithi? I mean, in terms of what you believe the IT services aspiration in terms of revenue and in terms of global market share, what could it be by 2030?
We don't even give you a short-term guidance. How am I going to give you a long-term stock market prediction?
It's a forecast. It's not so much a guidance. Nobody's going to hold you down to it.
I don't want to put a number on
Okay,
this.
you don't want to put a number. But you talked about the workforce, Krithi, and what we have seen over the last few years is this decoupling that's taken place between revenue growth as well as the number of people that the IT industry has been hiring. And if I look at the current numbers, FY24 hiring is the lowest that we've seen in the last several years. FY23, 2,90,000, FY22, 4,50,000, FY24, the estimated 60,000. Is this, we, of course, through the pandemic years did see hiring take place at a much higher level, and perhaps some of that normalization has happened. But now with everybody talking about AI, what does it mean as far as the workforce is concerned?
I believe decoupling is a too strong a word, and word we are using too early. What's happening now?
So you don't believe we've decoupled?
We have not decoupled. Like what's happening now, like you mentioned, is many of the organizations had hired ahead of the need, ahead of the curve during the pandemic. And as the demand stabilized and demand softened, we started using our existing workforce and train them because we've been training them. So we've been using the bench to fulfill the new requirements. So to call it decoupling is too early. And to factor and say that it's because of generative AI is not accurate.
So generative AI is the excuse or the alibi to rationalize workforce at this point in time?
Maybe, like because say how many other companies are using really today, like generative AI is most places we are doing initial experimentation POCs to say that it's become mainstream, and that is causing the reduction in workforce is not accurate.
It's not true.
Yeah.
So let's then first, before I address generative AI, let's talk about what it could do potentially in the medium term as far as the workforce is concerned. And I'll put this in the context of a comment that Satya Nadella made in a conversation with me where he said that there will be some displacement, but he also believes that new opportunities and new jobs will be created. How do you see that impacting jobs in the in the short to medium term?
We agree with him. Everybody has to, right? We agree with him. Like what you have seen in every technology, right? There will be some displacement, there will be some disruption, but eventually we will be able to do more work. When you have to do more work, you need more people to do that. So our going in assumption or planning assumption doesn't factor in we having to reduce the number of people. We believe that we have to continue to hire the same kind of people, that number of people that we are doing now. And
so you don't see any significant decline as far as hiring is concerned?
No, we don't. We are not planning like that. But we probably may need to change the way we train people, what we are training them. That may change. And kind of people we hire may also change. But we don't expect to reduce the hiring or our headcount to go down.
Okay. So when you say that you will probably look at changing the capability mix and also changing the kinds of people that you hire, explain to me what that could potentially mean. And also, what is it that you're doing currently to be able to ensure that you do have those capabilities? Have you increased your spends? What are you doing differently?
So, if you look at the broad spectrum of any work, I'm very close to software development. If I take that as an example, but you can extrapolate to many activities that we do. So what generative AI is doing is increasing the productivity in the middle where actually the programming takes place. But where you are trying to gather the requirements, validate the requirements, doing the design, or what is the critical thinking required, or the planning process, or towards the end where you need to validate the output of the machine and creating a better, superior user experience. So those areas will not go away very quickly. What probably may get replaced or disrupted, or where you get more productivity is in the middle. So what we believe, the critical skills that we will need to continue to have, critical thinking, your ability to do strategic planning, okay, creativity. These are the things that will not go away, that probably are going to need in more numbers than what you have today. So the kind of training that you do for your people, like it's not that the fundamental training will go away, but the kind of training you do could be around critical thinking, strategic planning, or fostering more creativity. Those are the areas probably you need to have more skill sets within the team.
You know, Krithi, I want to come back to what you essentially said, that at this point in time, the adoption of AI across companies is perhaps at the nascent stage at this point in time, and we haven't seen any kind of scale, with the exception of the likes of course, OpenAI, etc. Right. But I want to understand from you, you know, the way that we saw the cloud transformation take place and the opportunities that that opened up as far as the Indian IT services companies were concerned in the large deals that went through. What are we talking about? Are we talking about the next few years before you start to see that AI-driven shift happen as far as transformation deals are concerned?
So, Shereen, I don't want to, when we met in Davos, I explained to you, like the way we look at how generative AI or any of these AI technologies will assist the three phases. We are looking at is initial set of programs, what we call assist. Just helping a human doing the job better. Second is augment, participate in the work that human is doing. So the first could be a call center where a question comes on what is in this document. To summarize the document and answer the question. Second, augment, where we mean a wealth advisor, helping the wealth advisor, suggesting better products. Third is transforming the products and services, coming up with new opportunity. So in the initial stages, you would see more assist and augment. And probably for you to see more programs or more work that gets done in the transform space, it will take more time. So this will follow the curve. It's not going to happen overnight.
It's not going to happen overnight. Something that has changed through the course of normalization post the pandemic is this back to work policy, which all of you here, IT services companies in India, have essentially said that you need to come back to work. You know, everyone was talking about how things will never go back to the pre-pandemic days. Hybrid was here to stay, work from home was here to stay, and so on and so forth. Why didn't that work out?
So when we looked at when people are working remotely and things were getting to normal, but people continue, our associates continue to work from home, what we missed are a few things that first is the collaboration. See, at least within TCS, we value the collaboration and camaraderie a lot. And that was missing.
It can't happen over Zoom and Teams,
It cannot, right? See, like, while Zoom and Team are very efficient mediums, we overlook the importance of informal conversations, the chit-chat that happens in the office. The second, what we missed is, how do you, like in TCS at least, we keep all the time saying the values are very important to us. How do I impart the value to an associate who has not even come to office once? In fact, in TCS, about 30 to 40% of the associates joined in the last 2 to 3 years. And for the first 2 years, they're not even coming to office. If you don't even come to office, what is the value that you stand for?
But isn't there a middle ground that can be arrived at?
Like?
I mean, the flexible hours and the flexible sort of approach to coming into work a couple of days a week or so on and so forth.
The third point I was coming to, that's where I was coming to. The third one is, like, when we look back all at our careers. Okay, of course, organization enable a lot of training, a lot of opportunities. But the most important learning came from seeing how the mentors and the seniors behaved in a given situation, and getting to know what is the best way to handle a given client situation, what is the best way to design a solution. So that cannot be replaced by any amount of training. And you, by observing continuously what the rest of the team does, is the maximum value we get. And by saying I'll do flexible, I'll do come for 2 days a week or whenever I like, you lose out a lot. And eventually we believe for what TCS stands for, what we all value we want to give to our customers. It's important for associates to be there every day.
Okay, so no work from home, no hybrid work or any of that. Those days are firmly behind you.
We believe that's not the right way for an individual to develop their own career.
70-hour weeks?
Don't get me in trouble. Okay.
Okay. I thought I'd try. But what are you hearing from customers and clients at this point in time, Krithi?
Almost 100% of our customers, they are all keen on getting their workforce back to office every day. We have not. It's very interesting. Like at the beginning of the pandemic, I think we all somehow get into a group think. I think very quickly. Like all of us believed work from home was the right thing to do. But towards when things became normal, almost everybody now believes work from office is the right thing to do. Okay, I have not come across any customer that said, why are you asking the associates to come to office?
You know, something that I'm particularly interested in, and I wanted to understand what the point of view is as far as TCS is concerned, since we're talking about workforce, is women in the workforce. And I know that TCS has been championing gender parity within the workforce.
We have more than 200,000 women associates.
More than 200,000 women. That does deserve a big round of applause, because that's not what we usually end up seeing across many organizations. But leadership roles?
Leadership, so sometimes we try to look at the headline and then say like there are so many leaders, only one. But you have to look at what we are doing, how many leaders are there at multiple other levels. As time goes by, you will see more and more of them. Like we have a very, very conscious program to foster and to encourage women to take leadership roles, because we have to look at why this is not happening. And over a period of time, what happened in the early days, women used to take roles that are easy for them to balance their work.
Yeah.
And such roles also ended up being not considered for leadership positions over a period of time. So today we are very actively encouraging them to take roles that will put them in a high growth career path. So if you look at the next level and the subsequent level, the numbers are increasing year after year. So you would see one CEO sometime.
It's work in progress. Absolutely. But I want to understand from you, and this is not tying you down to any kind of guidance or so on and so forth. What are the mega trends that you're most excited about that you believe will shape the future of the Indian IT services landscape over the next few years?
See, what definitely we didn't want to talk about AI. AI is a very interesting thing, and it probably allies very well with what Indian ingenuity and creativity can do.
What is the India AI advantage to your mind?
See, first of all, our people are the biggest advantage. We have so many people, and we will be able to, because if you look at AI as only improving productivity and reducing the compute hours required, that's only one aspect. But what we believe is using generative AI, you can create value across the spectrum in many places. And with such a diverse set of experience that Indians have, and the exposure to the different ways of doing things, actually we'll have much natural, we talked about creativity, like we say that Indian jugaad, right? Like that itself can become very valuable for us as we work in this technology.
Okay. In terms of discretionary spend at this point in time, that is of course coming back to the bread and butter, because AI is still a distance away. But on discretionary spends, are you now starting to see any visible indication of risk aversion receding?
Actually, we keep explaining this. Like the discretionary spend, it took a small beating, but otherwise the problem most of us faced were not because of serious reduction in discretionary spend. It is because of the programs that were started few years ago, which were not yielding sufficient ROI, that were paused, which caused the reduction or the lack of growth. So I don't see a great, we continue to win projects, we continue to see programs that are discretionary in nature, transformative in nature. Is the same proportion as before? Maybe the proportion is slightly lesser. Probably if you used to have 50% discretionary per project, maybe now it's a 30 to 40%. But it's slowly increasing, like we are trying.
Okay, so you're feeling confident about
Absolutely.
that. One of the other things that I want to talk to you about is the rise that we have seen as far as these global centers are concerned here in India, and whether you believe that there is potential for collaboration or partnership, or how you actually see this as an opportunity or as a threat.
We have been collaborating with them for a very long time. In fact, one of the large banks, that set up a, we used to call them captive in those days.
Yes.
Now you call them GCCs.
Yes.
One of the large banks, when they set up their GCC in India, they set it up out of our own premises. We actually helped them. In fact, we lent our recruitment engine for them for the first set of people. So collaboration happens all the time with these GCCs. And we were mentioning before, many of the GCCs are set up for doing work that cannot be outsourced, but they want to leverage the talent in India. So there is a natural collaboration. There is a piece of work they cannot outsource, but they want to leverage the talent in India. There is another piece that which we can do. There's a very natural collaboration that happens. We were, at least from, I've been in banking for so long, almost every bank has a GCC in India. And we continue to grow with all of them. We work with them in India. We work with their businesses in US or any other part of the world.
One of the other aspects that I want to discuss with you, Krithi, is what we are now seeing as far as new opportunities are concerned for the Indian IT services industry, and where you believe that those opportunities lie today, outside of course, the traditional way of doing things. We've also change the mix between on-site and offshore and so on and so forth. But where do you believe the new opportunities lie potentially that you are targeting? And more importantly, how much over the next 5 years, not just for you at TCS, but for the industry, do you believe we're going to see inorganic opportunities drive growth?
So we need to look at new areas where we can, see where technology can be leveraged. Like initially we started from software engineering. Then we branched out into back office. Then we branched out into infrastructure. Now, the one area we talk about is how do you branch out beyond the CIOs? Like even today, most of the Indian IT work is concentrated around the technology and the CIOs. But there's so much of work that gets done beyond the CIOs today. There's a lot of budget available beyond the CIOs. And within TCS, we are quite focused on leveraging our domain capability, industry capability, and going beyond, going to other CXOs, and trying to find how can you give a better solution to them or more product can be more efficient. So I think that's one immediate area where we are looking into in terms of technology.
But driven by M&A, how actively are you scouting for opportunities? And are there any specific gaps that you believe you want to plug via the M&A route?
M&As we actively look at, Shereen. But I believe our bar has always been high on M&A. Like we operate at a particular margin. So when we acquire another organization, our bar is that we should be able to use existing TCS talent and combine that with what capability we acquire. And there should be a multiplier effect. We will not do a M&A just for adding some more revenue into our P&L. So if there is no multiplier effect, we don't go for it. That's the reason you see small number of whatever M&As we have done, we've been very successful.
What about the startups in India and the startup ecosystem in India at this point in time? When you look at what's happening, what excites you? What gives you hope? What gives you confidence and optimism?
See, obviously, like one result that you see is the number of all these billion-dollar valuation unicorns that you see in India, and the number that's increasing definitely is a important hope, and the kind of creativity people come in with. I'm completely bullish on the Indian startup scenario.
Bullish on the Indian startup system? Is that a space that you would perhaps look at from a M&A point of view?
We do constantly look at. We do look at opportunities where we think that we can acquire some of these capabilities. But sometimes actually you have to be careful, like startups function very well in their cocoon. Like if you bring into the organization, large organization, we should not kill their creativity. Like we look at opportunities. We have a unit called Co-Innovation Network that constantly looks at startups not only in India, across the world. But we help them scale, we help them by introducing them to our customers, we show them the problems that are possible. So that's the approach I think that you can work together very well with them than just acquiring.
So how does TCS, at the end of all of what you've been able to achieve, continue to operate or have a startup mindset where you are agile, where you're nimble, where you're flexible, and yet being able to operate at the kind of scale that you are?
We somehow in TCS, at least my view, we operate like a big small company. Like when I joined TCS.
Like a big small company, okay.
When I joined TCS, we were about
35 years ago.
35 years ago. Rajesh was sitting here. Rajesh probably, like when he was, maybe he was even smaller. Okay. And we actually carry the same mindset. And we also, what we do is, we are actually made up of very, very number of small units. Like each client, they try to behave as if they are one small independent entity. So we ensure and encourage them to operate like that.
You know, I think we're at the end of our time, so let me ask you this, Krithi. As the man steering the ship today, what is the one thing that you're most concerned about as you navigate through troubled waters of 2023 and 2024? And what's the thing that gives you the most hope or the most confidence at this point in time? And since we are all about AI, I mean, are you using a co-pilot? What does the co-pilot do for you? You know, how much of tech is in your life?
From a concern, I don't have actually, from a concern or worry perspective, I don't look at, other than the global economy doing well, and which I'm sure that over a period of time, it will all work well. So I focus a lot on internally, are my teams collaborating well? Are we sharing and learning from one another?
Are they?
Or there. We continue to do that. So those are the topics we talk about. The values are something that I focus a lot. If I am concerned about something, protecting the value is something that because it's not for any esoteric reason. I believe value gives us a competitive advantage. Okay, that's something
so
that...
So the value leads to the valuation.
You can say that.
So nothing you're worried about?
As I said, like that is we want to ensure that we protect the value and DNA of TCS. That's something I think a lot about.
And how much of tech in your life?
How much of tech in my life? Reasonable.
Reasonable?
Reasonable.
So do you chat with ChatGPT every day?
Once in a while.
Once in a while.
Once in a while we do try to ask, try to learn something, like definitely at least once a day.
Once a day?
Yes.
That's the go-to.
Definitely once a day.
What is the one thing that you asked ChatGPT today? I'm assuming that you've already had your conversation for the day.
What question Shereen is likely to ask me?
Did it give you the answers?
No.
So we can still beat ChatGPT. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for joining us here this afternoon. Krithi, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate.
For more content on tech and leadership, subscribe to NASSCOM YouTube channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.